pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we enter into the holidays and we get ready for the new year, I just ask that we continue to keep each and every person safe in this city, Lord God. Lord, we just ask that you continue to keep our fire and our police safe and everyone in the city. Everyone that is going through hard times, continue to comfort them, continue to keep them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, roll call.
Alexander,
Present.
Spitali,
Here.
Benez,
Here.
Kalwinski,
Here.
Salinas,
Here.
Tyler,
Here.
Here.
Emerson,
Here.
Warple,
Here.
Breakups.
Here. 9 present, 1 electronically. Mayor.
Thanks, Councilman. Good to see you all for the rare December 30th meeting. I wanted to start off and talk about something that happened in Robertsdale last week. I was speaking with Councilman Mark about this shortly before the meeting, and I just wanted to start off and talk about, it was the day after Christmas in Robertsdale when residents started flooding City Hall with phone calls about I want to say a bad odor, but that is understating it greatly. It was an overwhelming odor of gas. Smelled like it was about to blow up. Covered pretty much the entire area around Amico Park, all that part of Robertsdale, Lost Marsh Golf Course, came from Whiting. The tank farm located just to the west of Amico Park. BP suffered a leak, technically in the city of Whiting, although I talked to Mayor Spebar during this. Mayor Spebar wasn't getting any information from BP whatsoever. City of Hammond was getting no information from BP whatsoever. Hammond Fire Department was getting no information from BP whatsoever. Hammond Department of Environmental Management was getting no information from BP whatsoever. We asked for paperwork for the odor that was permeating the entire First District and all of Whiting, and we were told we'd get it later in the day, and it took them 4 days to get us the MSDS paperwork, which is completely unacceptable. BP is not communicating when they have emergency situations. They're not communicating with first responders in Hammond. They're not even communicating with first responders in Whiting, and that's our host community. So I want the residents of Hammond to know that it's not for lack of trying. We were ringing their phone off the hook through multiple different departments, and we were getting no response. It's unacceptable what's going on. I don't know what we have to do short of litigation to try to get BP to stop stinking up and stop odoring up the First District and Northwest Indiana in general. Councilman Mark, I know this is a big deal, so I don't know if you want to say anything.
Really big deal. Day after Christmas, people are home trying to enjoy family, and the smell got in the house. People were having physical reactions to it. They were coughing. They felt nauseous, some of them. It was throughout the Goose Island area, like you said, around Amico Park and into Whiting. And before the wind shifted, it was coming into my neighborhood, even further south. But then the wind shifted, and we didn't have much of that after that. And people were calling and asking, well, what's the city's response? What do we know? They're concerned for their health and safety, and nobody had answers. And then a question came up about how did BP find out about this? Was it through the calls by residents to 911? Or did BP come out before that with some sort of announcement? And clearly, it looks like it was because of residents' calls
Yes, sir.
to 911 and the fire department investigating and coming up with trying to get answers from BP. And like you said, they weren't forthcoming and they weren't fast. It wasn't in real time. We didn't know. Our emergency service workers were out there in that, and they didn't know what they were breathing. They were at risk. Not only were the people who are in their homes and going to church or whatever at risk, but our emergency responders are first in line, and there's concern about that. I have great concern about all of them. The responders need to be taken care of, and the BP doesn't seem to care about that. They come out with announcements when they're ready. Meanwhile, like you said, We didn't get the report for 4 days, and what are we breathing? Is it toxic? Our emergency workers need to go to the houses and do a write-up in the computer, and BP has to tell us what they're breathing. So when they go to the ER, they know what they're dealing with in the ER, and we don't get that. It's not timely enough. It's just not timely enough. It's
And-
not responsible.
Coming on the heels of the flare-up that they had in like February or March, same kind of response BP had during that, no information at all. And then after the flare-up, BP went around and did the round. They did the rounds in City Hammond. I'm sure they did it with all the local elected officials and say, we're tightening up. We're never going to do this kind of stuff again. And then during the leak last week, total silence, total stonewall, not even talking to first responders. Completely unacceptable. So I just want to acknowledge it happened. It was horrifying. It smelled for 24 solid hours. So, I mean, we're sending a strongly worded letter to BP. I don't know what else to do, quite frankly, short of litigation.
And BP stated they were monitoring the spill and that it was safe.
Right,
Do we rely totally on what BP tells us?
yeah.
Is there a second source of information with more timely information about what we're breathing and what actions we should take because of it could be toxic? We can't rely on them. Clearly, they don't tell us in a timely manner what's happening in our neighborhoods.
So, thank you, Councilman. To the residents of Robertsdale, I apologize. I promised to follow this up. We followed the last one up. BP told us they tightened up. Obviously, that's not the case, so we will follow up. I'll keep the council informed.
And I
Councilman Mark,
appreciate you being out there,
thank you.
because I know you came out there
It
with
did.
environmental and with 911 investigating. So on your day off too, just like everybody else, you were out there as I was, and thank you for that.
It was smelled so much, it was like, you could feel it. It was very intense,
It was
so
hard.
scary. So anyway, council, I know you know this. I just want to point out, it's the end of the year. This is the last council meeting of the year. We have 3 things that must pass tonight, or must be voted on. If they get shot down, they get shot down. I would never presume to tell the council what they're doing, but we have APRA 4.0 facing you all. That's an end of year deadline. I know Megan's concerned, and she's here making sure that this goes well. I know we've talked about it a lot. I just want to point that out. Elected official salary ordinance must be done tonight, as well as the police and fire salary ordinance and the civil city salary ordinance. So I'm going to give you an update on where we are. And last meeting, I updated you that the fire department rejected the merit system, and I told you the police was voting on it. Police department rejected the merit system as well. So thank you, council. I know the police and fire are very happy that you gave them the choice on what type of department to work for. So they did shoot it down like we anticipated they may. So fire department, police department negotiations are completed. We signed the contracts, we held a ceremony. Fire department contracts are completed. We have not officially signed the contract. We are planning a ceremony, last I heard, for this Friday. We anticipate everything. I think everything's wrapped up. Not even I think. Everything's wrapped up except for the public ceremony part. Teamsters, we have the water department Teamsters signed. We have the sanitary district Teamsters signed. Public Works Teamsters shot down their deal, which was an interesting wrinkle on like December 20th. So obviously that was late in the game. They shot down their deal. So we are going to regroup next week after the 1st of July, or excuse me, after the 1st of January, and see if we could patch it together. This has happened before. I've been mayor a long time, as you all know. We've had situations where unions don't have their, the union and the city don't have their deal put together by the end of the year. What we do in cases like that is carry forward the union contract. They're still a union. We still recognize them. They still have bargaining unit. They still have all the rules applied to the union contract. I look at it as like year 5 of a 4-year deal. It's not wonderful, and we anticipate knocking it out soon. I'm surprised they shot it down, being honest with you. I'm really surprised they shot it down because everybody else approved it and thought it was a good deal. So we're going to finish that up next week. I imagine by the next council meeting, I'll have good news on that front as well. And if I don't have good news, it'll be a really bad news. How about that? Okay, I imagine the next council meeting, hopefully we'll have good news. Activity log, public signing ceremony with the Hammond FOP. Our cops are real happy. It's wonderful. Thank God. Hopefully we'll stop losing them and we could stabilize the force. Monthly meeting with Hammond firefighters went well. We held it with Shift 3 in the Central Firehouse. We filled a hospitality manager position at the Gene Shepherd Center with Tabitha Dempsey. Tabitha came from the from the Sportsplex Hospitality, Tabitha, and I actually just went to visit the Gene Shepherd Center right before I got here. They built basically, it's a restaurant, but it's really a lot like a bar. It's really nice. If you haven't been to the Gene, it's worth checking out. They've done a really good job. They built like a new restaurant in the Gene Shepherd Center, and I can see that in the summertime. It's going to be a popular spot right off the lake there. We're talking about building a little boardwalk out there off the lake. It's really cool. So if you get a chance, even if you're not a pickleball player, they have good food, good drinks, all the TVs with all the games on. Real cool.
Courts are real nice.
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
Playing on them.
I know in
They're
the-
full a lot of the time
Yeah.
during open play. And people come from Illinois. Somebody came from Michigan, Valparaiso, Chesterton, as I'm talking to people.
Yeah, it's cool.
They're drawing from everywhere.
I appreciate it, Councilman Mark. I know you just in Pulaski Park, you got pickleball courts up there as well. It's something that's really taken off. I'm glad we did that at the Gene. Met with the Outside Educational Institute about opportunities they see in the city, Hammond, with a particular piece of property. I've always thought differently about this piece of property. We have interested companies from Illinois looking at this property too. It's an interesting situation, given what's going on with our schools in Hammond. Should we try to help out with the education system, or do we keep doing our job, bringing in business? So we're having a little dilemma. It's about a piece of property in the 2nd District. So I want to talk to Councilman Al more about that when I get a chance. And obviously, I want to talk to you all about it as well, see where you all stand on the issue. So it's an interesting opportunity for us. Met with CEO and Superintendent of Hammond Water about that mass letter that went out about lead lines. I was really not pleased that that letter went out. It was forced on us by US EPA, but I think that we all should have known about it first, me and you all, so that when we start getting the phone calls from our residents, we know what they're talking about, and that didn't go down. So we talked to the water department about that. I promise you we'll get better in the future on that. Met with multiple candidates from Hammond Fire Department, interested in the open assistant fire chief position. That position was filled with assistant chief. Now, he was former battalion chief Chris Turton. Chris Turton's a great Hammond firefighter, has been with the city for 32 years. He is now acting as assistant fire chief, doing a good job. We have an open battalion chief position. We're interviewing for that as we speak. Held staff retreat for all department heads and number 2s. Staff retreat is once a year, basically, maybe twice a year. We do it up in the 1st District, up in Robertsdale, in the Clipper Room. That was an all-day event, 4 hours, but really good getting all the employees back on the same page. Then we had our employee Christmas party that night. I want to thank a lot of the council people that showed up. We had literally had 400 or 500 people at the employee Christmas party. That's good for morale. Met with the CEO of the South Shore Convention and Visitors Bureau in regards to a project we're working on with the Little Calumet River Basin Authority. I've been talking to Councilman Warple about this project. It's an interesting proposal. Phil Talon and the SSCVB is talking about doing over there. It's a good, interesting opportunity for us. Met with the Festival of the Lakes team to discuss sponsorship opportunities for the 2025 Fest. And met with the Director of Government Affairs of NIPSCO in regards to data centers and power needs. This is something we're all going to have to start getting involved in, is the power that's going to be powering these data centers. We are blessed in Hammond that we have the infrastructure, but it still costs a lot of money. We're blessed in Hammond, because you read about these data centers that are going to these little small towns. No, they're not. These data centers, this data center that we're talking about in Hammond takes enough power to power 3 steel mills. So if you don't have the NIPSCO capability to power 3 steel mills in like Chesterton, you're not getting a data center. You need like the infrastructure from NIPSCO to support these things, and that's one thing we're blessed with here in Hammond, thankfully. So that's all I got for my report. I'm sure there's questions.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Warple.
Mayor, you brought up the Shepherd Center and the pickleball courts, and I've never seen anything like it. I mean, being an old guy, it's kind of like playing ping pong on top of the table, if you ask me, from what I've seen. But that place is packed, nonstop, except there's a lull during the day when people are working. But it's beautiful. I commend your park department and yourself for bringing that in there, and that grill and bar in there is the perfect thing for it. I've gotten a lot of people that are really impressed with that over there.
Thank you, Dave. Councilman.
And also the improvements to the park. I mean, thanks to the engineering department and the Capital Improvements Board, we got a bunch of dirt and stuff hauled over there to level off that field and add to the snow hill, and
Yeah.
it really wasn't any cost to the residents. In fact, I think we saved $300,000 or something like that by using that. And just wanted to commend you and the staff and the park department.
We appreciate it. Yeah, it looks really nice over there, Councilman. Thanks. Right before I left here, there was literally 150 people in there playing pickleball. I'm sitting there, and then I come over here with you all. And that place, if we got 150 people in 3 days before we turned it into pickleball, it would have been a big 3 days. So the place is night and day. And I want to thank Jim Talon, who has moved his office over there basically to help get it off the ground. So he's doing a real good job.
And just so everybody knows, the walking track still exists, the workout room still exists over there, so we didn't lose nothing up, other than a few empty basketball courts.
Any questions?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Thank you all. It's good to see you. I'll
Thank
be
you,
ready
Mayor.
for the debate.
Next up, approval of minutes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Warple.
make a motion that we approve the minutes from the December 9th meeting.
Second.
A motion and a second by Councilman Emerson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Next up, approval of claims.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vaness.
I move for approval of claims beginning with claims dated December 16th, 2024, and ending with claims dated December 23rd, 2024. Claim number 10681 through claim number 10927 inclusive in the amount of $7,646,166.35. I so move.
Second.
And a motion and a second by Councilman Warple. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call.
Alexander. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Tyler.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Warple.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Rakos.
Yes. Passes, claims passes 9-0. Next up, public hearings.
2433, an ordinance to further appropriate from the ARPA Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund for purposes that fulfill the intent of the American Rescue Plan Act, version 4.0.
Okay, our public hearing is now open. Anybody would like to speak specifically to ordinance 2433 regarding the ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund? Is there anybody who would like to speak on that issue?
Does this have to do with the data center?
No. Anybody like to speak on the ARPA coronavirus? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Next up, communications.
Mr. President,
Yes.
we all received a communication from the law department. I guess it'll be an amendment to the sign ordinance we're going to pass tonight. And in caucus, we agreed that we'll just deal with it separately in the near future.
Thank you.
And it was just a add-on, wasn't it? A
Right.
one-way
Cleary.
street.
Yeah, I knew I saw it somewhere. That's where it was. Anybody else? I'd like to make an announcement from HC3. We had Knuckleheads and HC3 had another Christmas give back on December 23rd. That was a Sunday. Very well attended. We had families from 4500 Pine all the way down to 7700 Rhode Island and everywhere in between. I want to especially thank Optimist Club, who is our big sponsor, HC3. Also, Councilman Spitali was our biggest donor on the council, Councilwoman Alexander and Councilwoman Vanez. It was it's an amazing thing to see it. Dustin Voris, he always takes so much planning, and we always have extra toys specifically for when we're at a house that was given to us by the school city. when there's neighbors, the kids are checking out the window, we have Santa go take them, they have extra toys, we have Santa take them to that. So it's just, it's always been a really good thing, so, and thank you all for supporting. Any other communications?
Mr. President,
Yes.
are you the one that's always dressed like the Grinch?
I'm not the Grinch, no. Anybody else? Any communications?
Mr. President.
Yes.
I would just like to thank there were a lot of holiday giveaways, but I want to thank the Hammond Police Department for their annual food basket giveaway. There were a few families who reached out to me last minute, and through the work of the FOP, they were able to get those families on the list, and I know they really appreciate it. So thank you, HPD, once again, for taking care of our families throughout the entire year.
Yes, thank you. Any other communications or committee reports? Any communication? Communications is closed. Next up, committee reports.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Warple.
Councilwoman Alexander had me distracted. Council as a whole is bringing out 2431, 2432, 2433, 2434, 2435, and 2436.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Any other committee reports? Committee reports closed. Next up, ordinance, third reading, final passage.
'2431, an ordinance fixing the salaries for elected city officials for the city of Hammond, Indiana, commencing January 1st, 2025, be it ordained by the Common Council of the city of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilman Warple.
move for final passage and adoption of 2431.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Councilwoman Vines. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call?
Alexander? Yes. Spitali?
Yes.
Vines?
Yes.
Kalwinski?
Yes.
Salinas?
yes,
Tyler?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Warple?
Yes.
Rakos?
Yes. 2431 passes 9-0.
2432, an ordinance authorizing the city controller to transfer funds from one line item to another within various city 2024 budgets.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 2432.
Second.
Second by Councilman Spitali. Any discussion on 2432?
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
this is transferring funds from several line items that there were funds left over to the energy savings program.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call?
Alexander?
Yes.
Spitali?
Yes.
Vines?
Yes.
Kalwinski?
Yes.
Salinas?
yes,
Tyler?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Warple?
Yes.
Rakos?
Yes. 2432 passes 9-0.
2433, an ordinance to further appropriate from the ARPA Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund for the purposes that fulfill the intent of the American Rescue Plan Act, version 4.0.
Mr. President,
Councilman Warple.
move for final passage and adoption of 2433.
Second.
With a motion and a second by Councilwoman Vines. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
to answer Mr. Stoyer's question, this pertains to appropriating the funds that have to be appropriated by the end of 2024 from the American Rescue Plan. I believe it's roughly around $300,000. And I know part of it's going to go to IT upgrades. And then the rest is for miscellaneous funds as needed as far as fees, tipping fees, sanitary fees.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just to clear, after ARPA 3.0 passed at the end of '23, beginning '24, there was a small unallocated balance of $371,000 basically remaining. Controller's office recommends using $270,000 for server upgrades needed by the IT department, of which there is no funding source. Any remaining unallocated funds will generally be allocated for recycling landfill overlays to cover general cost overruns on these issues and are appropriate for uses under APRA. So this money needs to be allocated by the end of 2024. And we are at the end of 2024 and spent by 2026. So whatever's left over after the IT upgrades, we'll just use for permissible uses that, you know, we have in our budget. So,
Thank you, Mayor.
yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any discussion? Roll call?
Alexander? Yes. Spitali?
Yes.
Vines?
Yes.
Kalwinski?
Yes.
Salinas?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Warple?
Yes.
Rakos?
Yes. 2433 passes 9-0.
Councilman, can I say something in 2 seconds?
Sure.
I just want to say thank you to the council. This wraps up our ARPA tour, okay? We had $55 million given to the city through ARPA. We came up with a way to spend it in all 6 of our districts. We did it without fighting, and we did it without gridlock, and I just want to say thank you to the council. There's a lot of cities that the ARPA money was the beginning and the end for them. They all went to war, and I just want to say thank you to the council. Thank you to the Controller's Office. Thank you to everybody, CIB, that came up with the list of projects. I think it was a good list, and we did good work, so I appreciate it. That's the last thing we have to do for ARPA, so thank you to the council. Thank you to Congressman Mervan, President Biden, everybody that made it possible, because we did a lot of good work with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we'll continue. 2434.
2434, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Hammond authorizing the City of Hammond, Indiana, to issue one or more series of its economic development revenue bonds and approving and authorizing other actions in respect thereto, YMCA project.
Mr. President,
Councilman Tyler.
I move for third and final passage of ordinance 24-34.
Second.
With a motion, a second by Councilwoman Vines. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Council.
as we discussed at the last meeting, this ordinance is approval of a series of economic development revenue bonds to meet the rest of our commitment to the building of the additional YMCA to our city. The total amount is not to exceed $6 million over the next 5 years, and this is in alignment with redevelopment agreements as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call?
Alexander?
Yes.
Spitali?
Yes.
Vines?
Yes.
Kalwinski?
Yes.
Salinas?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Warple?
Yes.
Rakos?
Yes. 2434 passes 9-0.
Mr. President, can I say something about that project also? Like wrapping up projects at the end of the year. If you all remember, we did $5 million out of ARP for the Y, and this $6 million bond wraps up the entire phase 1 of the project, but there is another phase out there. We have to figure out how to get that one done. It's a little more complicated, but the White family wants to do another $20 million expansion that'll head more towards 165th Street. And we have to do some unlocking of economic development projects to make that happen, but that's phase 2, and it's sitting there. It's all drawn up. It's just a matter of moving some businesses around and getting that done. So thank you to the council. Thank you, Councilman Berry. Thank you to the council for approving the ARP and to the TIF money to make that project a reality. I go there a lot, and it's hundreds of people at all time, so it's wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.
2435, an ordinance respecting and ratifying the actions of the City of Hammond Board of Public Works and Safety related to traffic regulations for 2024.
Mr. President,
Councilman Warple.
move for final passage and adoption of 2435.
Second.
For the motion, a second by Councilman Spitali. 2435. Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
the Board of Public Works had agreed to send us their actions for us to approve them as far as signs or stuff that is needed to be passed by ordinance when we allowed them to act on them during the meetings. And the 3 actions that were taken this year, stop sign eastbound and westbound, Cleveland and Garfield, resident-only parking at the 2800 block of 167th, 2800 block of 163rd, and no parking on the west side of Linden to 174th.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
like Councilman Warple stated earlier, in the new year, we'll amend this ordinance to also add we'll add permanent approval of residential-only parking signs on the 5800 block of Erie Street.
Would you like to make that an amendment now, or are we going to do it later?
Let's wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any discussion? Roll call.
Alexander,
Yes.
Spitali,
Yes.
Vines,
Yes.
Kalwinski,
Yes.
Salinas,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Warple,
Yes?
Rakos.
Yes, 2435 passes 9-0.
2436. An ordinance amending ordinances 3601, 3947, 4304, 4307, 4678, 4880, 4951, 8383, 8435, 8552, 8602, 8779, 8781, 8814, 8821, 8887, 8888, 8889, 9197, 9201, 9206, 9208, and 9446, also known as Section 32.49, 94.061, 94.062, 150.025, 150.045, 150.058, 151.51, 150.125, 150.15058, 154.40, and 156.20 of the Hammond Municipal Code as it pertains to certain fees and procedures relating to building contractors and waste hauling and administrative services provided by the Hammond Police Department.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Wood.
commend Carmen on reading that in its entirety. Thank God there are no fractions in there. And move for final passage and adoption of 2436.
A motion is second by Councilwoman Alexander. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
what this pertains to are fees that are charged for vehicle identification checks, waste hauler fees, inspections department permit fees, a little bit of an increase in inspection fees as far as buildings go and all that. And it's been about 5 years since we looked at this. I do know that the chief of staff in the mayor's office, they looked at the fees and they tried to keep them, or they did keep them in line with the other cities and towns and communities in our area.
Councilman Wood. Any other discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call.
Alexander? Spitali?
Yes.
Vines? Alexander? Spitali? Vines?
Yes.
Tyler? Emerson? Warple? Rakos. Tyler? Emerson? Rakos.
2436, I'm sorry. 2436 passes 9-0. 2436, I'm sorry. 2436 passes 9-0. And that concludes our third reading final passage. Okay, next up, introduction of ordinances.
It does.
Okay, next up, introduction of ordinances.
2437, an ordinance creating new funds, Fund 2488 and Fund 2489, Fund 2490, for the fiscal year 2025 Comprehensive Highway Injury Reduction Program, CHIRP, grant funds.
Councilman
Mr. President?
Spitali? Yes, Councilman Spitali.
We'll move for first and second reading. The council as a whole have a meeting set for January 13th, 2025, at 5:15.
Second.
The motion is second by Councilman Emerson. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call?
Alexander? Yes. Spitali?
Yes.
Vines?
Yes.
Kalwinski?
Yes.
Salinas?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Warple?
Yes.
Rakos?
Yes. 2437 passes on first and second reading.
2438, an ordinance amending ordinance number 9647, being an ordinance fixing the salaries and wages of all city officials and employees of the city of Hammond, Indiana, other than those fixed by statute or by ordinance heretofore enacted, and fixing the effective date thereof.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Warple.
move for passage on first and second reading. Council as a whole at 5:15 on January 13th.
Second.
The motion is second by Councilman Vines. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
like the mayor stated, when we passed the budget, we were given estimates because contracts weren't done. So basically, this is an ordinance amending the budget to coincide with the negotiated contracts that are completed as far as civil city workers and sanitary district, I'm assuming. All but the Teamsters, right? As far as the, not the Teamsters, the Public Works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Warple.
Just a quick question. That'll be, when they're done, we'll have a separate amendment for that too, correct?
This is first and second, so by the time we come back for third and final, we should have the final answers on this. I imagine, we already know what the answers are on most of the unions. We have to figure out what's going on with the Teamsters and Public Works. There's a couple other changes we need to make as well. So when we come back for third and final, like I said, I'm either going to have good news and we'll wrap all this up, or I'll have real bad news. Okay, hopefully it'll be good news. I imagine it will be. We have a good relationship with the Teamsters. And if you remember, we gave the Teamster drivers in Public Works a mid-contract raise. I just want to point that out for the council. It wasn't in the contract. We were losing drivers. We gave our drivers a mid-contract raise as a sign of goodwill. So I imagine that will pay off. I'm hoping that pays off because, you know, that's the union that's giving us trouble right now. So thank you, Councilman Warple. So 2 weeks from now, we'll have all the answers, hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion? Further discussion? Any discussion? Roll call?
Alexander? Yes. Spitali?
Yes.
Vines?
Yes.
Kalwinski?
Yes.
Salinas?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Warple?
Yes.
Rakos?
Yes. 2438 passes 9-0 on first and second reading.
2439, an ordinance amending ordinance number 9648, being an ordinance fixing the salaries and wages of all policemen and firemen of the city of Hammond, Indiana, other than those fixed by statute or by ordinance heretofore enacted, and fixing the effective date thereof.
Mr. President,
Councilman Warple.
move for passage on first and second reading with council as a whole at 5:15 on January 13th.
The motion is second by Councilwoman Alexander. Is there any discussion? Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman?
same thing as we said before, except this pertains to the police and fire or contracts.
Mr. President?
Yes, yes, Mayor.
When we were, in December, we wanted to pass the police and fire salary ordinance properly, and we talked about it at the time. We said we're in the middle of negotiations. We want to pass this just like the council did, so we inserted 1% in there. We knew that we were going to have to come back and amend it. Now that we've completed negotiations, this is us coming back to amend it. For your information, in the first year, the police are scheduled to get a 15% pay raise. Fire is scheduled to get a 10% pay raise in the first year. So, in the interest of transparency, that's the number. It's a lot bigger than one. But if you guys remember, the police department was signaling they're discontent with the contract 3 years ago, 1 year into the deal. They were pissed right off the bat, and we held them off because we knew eventually we were going to pay the piper. Piper's here, okay? We knew that this was coming. I know it's a big number, but I know that we've been talking about this for a couple of years now, so next year is our year.
Thank
Of
you,
course,
Mayor.
as long as the council approves it, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Roll call?
Alexander?
Yes.
Spitali?
Yes.
Vines?
Yes.
Kalwinski?
Yes.
Salinas?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Warple?
Yes.
Rakos?
Yes. 2439 passes 9-0 on first and second reading. And that concludes introduction of ordinances. Next up, resolutions. I have none. New and unfinished business.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
I owe you an apology. Councilwoman Alexander informed me she was the Grinch this Christmas and showed me a picture of herself, so I apologize.
Apology accepted.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman Tyler.
I should have included this under communications, but at the request of a resident of the 3rd District, I did go on record and submit a letter to the Indiana Office of Utility Consumer Counselor in opposition of the proposed 22% NIPSCO rate increase. So I've shared a copy of that letter with Liz to keep on file for our records. Thank you.
You?
Thank you, Councilman Berry. You know, can I say something about that?
Yes.
I appreciate you doing that. It's a lot more difficult for a mayor to do that, especially when we work with NIPSCO on so many more projects. So obviously, it's a big rate increase. I know our residents are talking a lot about it, Councilman. I appreciate you doing that on behalf of the city. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilman.
an announcement. Knights of Columbus will be sponsoring the pierogi drop on 119th and Atchison Avenue tomorrow. The doings begin at 8 p.m. There'll be heated facilities outside in their parking lot, as well as music indoors and outdoors, and fine cuisine as well, with the pierogi drop happening at noon. At midnight. Also, I want to thank the mayor for allowing the Knights to paint on Atchison Avenue, home of the pierogi drop, and Hammond and Whiting under that, and so that people will know where they're at and when it happens. So thank you from the Knights of Columbus and myself, and we're looking forward to a big turnout, and come out, brave the weather, and have a good time with music, food, and drink. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilman.
As we go into the new year, I just want to remind everyone to not shoot guns up in the air.
Thank you.
During this time. We know that it's a festive time, but shooting guns, bullets have to come down, so we do not want any issues this season. But I do want to wish everyone a happy new year as we go into the holiday in the next couple days.
Mr. President, could I add on
Yes.
to Councilwoman? Thank you, Councilwoman. I was just reading in the paper, resident of Cal City went down, he didn't pass away, but he got hit by a falling bullet just the other day in Cal City. That could have been fired from anywhere. Okay, so I appreciate Councilwoman bringing that up. Every year, people celebrate by firing guns into the air, and this is the first year Hammond's got shot spotter. And we are suing people when we could prove that gunfire has happened at your house. We're filing lawsuits against them and receiving judgments. We have shot spotter. It'll put our cops right where they need to be if gunfire is happening tomorrow night to celebrate the new year. So thank you, Councilwoman, for bringing that up.
Thank you, Mayor.
Happy New Year, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Appreciate you.
Happy New
Thank
Year
you.
to you too, Mayor, and everyone else.
Any other new and unfinished business? Any other new and unfinished business? New and unfinished business is closed. Next up, public expression. Just a reminder, some people haven't been here in a while or don't usually, need you to give your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. First up, we have John Haluska.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is John Haluska. I've spoken with you before, and I'm hoping to speak with you and the mayor again about the city taking the property by eminent domain that I and my family rent. And I'm sorry, the address is 626 177th Street in Hammond. That's over by Calumet Avenue on the river. I wanted to ask the council, and I have spoken with the mayor about it, to reconsider taking the property by eminent domain. I was hoping that since the property is of Trust 972, that's who actually manages this property. It's owned by the Meyer family. It's managed by PNC Trust 972. It's actually two parcels of property. There's the empty field to the east, and then there's the big building and the property right behind it. There's two separate pieces of property. So my thought is, instead of taking all of the property by eminent domain to provide a restaurant for District 4, because that was a major reason for the undertaking, it was my understanding. Instead of taking all the property, possibly just take the property to the east by eminent domain, leave the building intact, and my family would continue to rent the building. We will do necessary repairs. That way everybody wins. The 4th District will get its restaurant. My family can stay in business. The trust will still have property. They'll still have income coming in. So it's kind of a win-win all the way around. It's a interesting situation because I also have talked to an investor, a private investor, who's willing to put a Hilton hotel on the property to the east of this building, willing to include a sit-down restaurant and lounge and a banquet hall big enough to hold 300 people. Now that's private money. It won't cost the city anything. And I guess what I'm asking, this comes to court next week, January 7th. And I'm asking the council and the mayor, initially, if you can maybe get a continuance on the January 7th hearing to give everybody time to discuss this. And if you'd like, I'll meet with each and every one of you as a group or individually, and I can lay everything out for you. But I think this is a win-win for everybody if we can do it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Haluska.
very much.
Next up, Aaron Tyler.
Hi, long-time listener, first-time caller. Since it's the last meeting of the year, we just felt compelled to come up here and say thank you to all of you. We get to see a little bit, obviously, with Councilman Tyler being my husband, of just what you guys all do. And when I think about just even, the individual calls that you get from residents and, them feeling heard, even if you're not able to actually address always what they're calling about, I just think it's very meaningful. And, I used to come to every meeting, but now we watch right on TV. So, getting to have them see, you all caring about the city means a lot. So I know they wanted to say, do you want to say? What do you want to say, Brad? Nothing. What do you want to say, Jen?
Thank you for helping loving your city
And taking care of our city.
and take the tell city.
Yes, thank you. So thank you for that. And then also I just want to say a quick thank you for everyone who comes to speak during public expression. Oh, great, lollipop on the floor. I just think it's anytime that citizens are actually getting involved and coming to speak, I know like it gives me hope, you know, to see that people actually care about things that are happening. And so I just hope that even if it feels a little disheartening, just know that I'm having conversations with my kids about things like the environment, you know, because of what you all are doing. So, yeah, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Thanks, guys. Bye. All right, next up, George Stoya.
George Stoyer, Robertsdale. I was under the impression there was going to be I guess, a public hearing on this resolution. At least I'm looking at a newspaper, legal, that talks about on the economic revitalization area, December 30th. I don't know, maybe I missed it. I don't know. My joke's on me. But I understand that this thing's already been signed off and passed. So I don't know what's going on here, but my concern about the digital center is the state of Indiana, and I'm sure this city has basically given them everything. I've got an article I'd like entered into the record here. I got 2 copies if you want it, if you need 1, 2. You guys should look at this because it profiles actually how much the extent to which the state of Indiana has already conferred its blessing upon these types of projects. And I'm sure the mayor's prevailed upon you guys to give them everything but the kitchen sink. The problem is they're gonna draw down really big on electricity. And as we've upped the fees here that we did tonight that none that I know about either. I mean, none of this stuff's in the agenda. Nobody knows what the hell's going on around here. Just you guys. I don't understand the way you guys are running this government here. We're the last to know after we get hit with it. Thanks a lot. So much for being our representatives, right? Right, yeah, okay. But the point is, I'm a little angry about it. This is not the way to run a city hall. Nobody knows what you guys are doing. Nobody. You know, all this stuff waits to the last minute, whether it's the city budget, whether it's to the very last day, no one can remonstrate against it. Because why? Well, it's too damn late. It's going to go through. Nice, real nice. I mean, you're not fooling anybody. But back to the digital center. When NIPSCO's going around, it's part of Indiana here, and it's looking to cash in and jack up the rates because it needs to develop more capacity. It doesn't have it now. And guess who's going to pay for that? We are. And I don't see why the digital people cannot, at least at the very least, be made to set aside a fund, a rainy day fund for people that are maybe too destitute when them rates start to go high on the electricity, that they can maybe seek some help from, I know that what's it called? I can't think of the name of it. There's a group out of Indianapolis, the Citizens, there you go. And they managed to squeeze some money out of a couple of the mega corporations like Meta and Amazon to create a fund to help people destitute, sort of like a fund to help them out. So I really don't like the way you guys are doing stuff around here at all. Maybe it's me. Hey, maybe it's me. But I come here all the time, and I still don't know what the hell's going on.
Thanks, George. Next up, Joey Hines.
Good evening, members of the council. Before I begin, I would like to ask for a brief moment of silence to honor the lives lost on both sides of the conflict in Gaza. I think we're all aware of what's going on out there.
Sir, what was your name?
Joey Hines.
Thank you.
I live in Robertsdale, sorry. So in the season of Christmas, New Year, as we reflect on peace and renewal, let us remember the human cost of division and violence. Let us recommit ourselves to fostering understanding, compassion, and cooperation. Thank you. For 4 years, we've stood before this council speaking up for Briar East Woods, a natural space that embodies our community's history, health, and resilience. This forest is home to 100-year-old oaks, majestic maples, and ecosystems that sustained local wildlife and mitigating flooding. These trees do more than stand. They work for us every day by improving our air quality, cooling our neighborhoods, and storing carbon. Yet these benefits are fragile without clear protections. Decisions to remove these trees and develop this space can happen too quickly with too little community input. That's why I urge the council tonight to consider a tree protection ordinance or the establishment of a tree board. A tree ordinance could protect heritage trees based on size, age, or ecological value, require permits for tree removal with a transparent review process, mandate replanting or conservation offsets if removal is unavoidable. A tree board could serve as an advisory group, ensuring that local expertise and resident voices guide decisions about our urban forest. This board could also educate the public and develop long-term plans for preserving spaces like Briar East Woods. Other Indiana communities such as Noblesville and Carmel have successfully implemented similar measures, balancing development with conservation. I firmly believe our city can do the same. This is not just about saving lives or trees, it's about leaving a legacy. It's about ensuring that future generations inherit a city that values its history, protects its environment, and honors its natural spaces. I'd like us to work together to make thoughtful, compassionate decisions that reflect the values of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joey. Next up, TJ Erdig.
Rich, Mr. Ray.
I can't read that.
How's it going, guys?
Go ahead.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I hope you guys had a good holiday. And I'd like to echo what the kids said. Thank you for taking care of our city. And thank you guys for putting in the work and hearing us out. I appreciate it. First, I wanted to comment about the Haluska's haunted house. Everyone that I've talked to about it thinks it's cool that Hammond has a haunted house. I think it's a cool historic building. How old is the building? 105 years old. And it was the Indiana Botanic Gardens, which is the largest and oldest herbal distribution center. It's a historic building. It's a cool building. I think he had a good idea. It's already 2 parcels. So I think there's a room for a compromise there. I think we should keep it around. But I also wanted to talk about Briar East Woods and Governor's Parkway. I heard some talk at the last council meeting that people are saying that this is a state project run by NDOT and Hammond has no control over it. And that's not true. So it is a state project, but Hammond definitely has control over it. First off, it was designed by our city engineer, Dean Button, Governor's Parkway. He was on the design team with NDOT the entire way through. And he was even on the slideshow at the public hearing where they presented it all to us. And then, and Hammond applied for the grant funding through the TREX program. And so the federal government still has yet to approve Governor's Parkway due to the many problems raised by the residents of Hammond with the project. And the FRA representative, Tina Blumenberg, said it is always up to local communities if they want to go through with the project. Because, of course, it's our streets. And she also said that there's plenty of funding available, and Hammond is a priority for receiving additional funding for getting over railroad tracks. And why is Hammond a priority? I think if we all remember when Hammond made national news last year because there was a problem of kids climbing over parked trains to get to school. And this was listed as a reason for Governor's Parkway in the first couple years it was coming around. But it has become abundantly clear that it does nothing for those kids walking to school. The mayor said so himself in the Mayor's Night Out 2023 in the 6th District. And then for the kids, we talked about a pedestrian overpass, but as we all know, we've now lost that funding from the railroad. And so it's obviously a problem. The kids there's still no solution to this. So we can cancel Governor's Parkway project, which will cost Hammond millions of dollars and seriously harm our community, and apply for funding for something that will actually solve the train problem.
Thank you,
in Hammond.
TJ. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much.
Casey King.
Hello, Council. I had a speech planned, but I wasn't expecting Mr. Haluska to come here. Hello.
What was your name again?
Casey King, 632 Burton Court, Robertsdale. I've read a lot about Mr. Haluska's property, so I'd like to give you a little history lesson, which TJ already did. That property was built by Joseph Meyer in the 1900s. He settled here in Northwest Indiana because this environment is one of the most richest environments in the entire world with biodiversity. He established the world's largest supplier of natural medicine at the time. I purchased his 1933 catalog last year on eBay, and he would publish that every year, and you could mail order medicine. That building was where he distributed that natural medicine. So we value your property, and you should as well. I would suggest going to the Hammond Historical Preservation Committee and expressing your concerns there as well. And to tie that into Briar East Woods is the last remnant of biodiverse land in the city of Hammond. It's 4,700 estimated years old. That land is an example of why he had settled here. It's rich, it's biodiverse, there's animals. We have a list of plant life from Sandy O'Brien, who is a biologist, showing the plants that are in the woods. The Briar East Woods are also the greatest pollution remediator your city has. The fact that the mayor came up here and spoke about BP polluting, but on the contrary, some of you council members support the destruction of this woods, it's completely contradictory. If you're gonna talk about pollution, do not destroy the greatest pollution buffer your city has. The SCA plants trees. Grace Tafoya spoke about that last time, and Mr. Rakos, you said you support that organization. The SCA plants trees specifically to create pollution buffers. Me and Joey Hines, we planted upwards of 70 trees this past summer in East Chicago at Marktown to create a pollution buffer between Marktown and BP. No amount of tree plantings, though, can recreate what Briar East Woods is. Not in our time and not in our children's time. Mr. Tyler, not in your children's time can we create what Hammond has in Hessville. Please listen to us, and like TJ said at the last meeting, talk to us. Ken's been coming up here for 4 years. Other people are starting to come up. Other people have come up here and talked. Talk to us. Let's come to a compromise and let's solve this issue. Mr. Meyer, he was considered the first millionaire in Hammond. He established the world's largest supplier of natural medicine. Briar East Woods is an example the last example of the environment we used to have here in Northwest Indiana. Sunday, there was an article published in the Sun-Times
Thank you,
about
Casey.
Bryce Woods. Please read it. It's
Thank
a
you, Casey.
two-page article.
Next up, Ken Rosen.
Greetings, council members. Happy New Year. I was going back and forth as far as what I was going to talk about tonight, and I guess I kind of centered in on when the mayor was talking about the BP incident here last week, and I saw it on Facebook, and it was all over the place. And I've gone through there at various times when it smelled really bad. But just like Casey said, you know, this is nature versus industry around here. And you need to hold on to what nature we have in order to balance out the industry. To completely wipe out thousands of trees, 35 acres of doomed woodlands, when you've got oil tank farms and expressways and all this other stuff, dividing us up. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and I don't think it really makes much sense to most of you, be honest with you. I don't think so. I think you've been pressured into this, and I feel for you in that way, but we're not going to let up, okay? We're not going to let up because it's a dumb idea. We've got a better alternative that solves all the problems for less money. Okay? A better solution that doesn't destroy all the woods, that services the schools and the teachers and the parents dropping off students and the emergency vehicles, offers a second alternative route, doesn't close the fastest route to get across the track for emergency vehicles. It doesn't do that, which will increase emergency response time. The mayor talked about getting no information from BP. Well, he came out last week and he looked at all of us and he told us that he was going to take down every single building on Kennedy Avenue. He boasted about it. Okay? And he was very clear. He seemed serious. Now, we know that he exaggerates sometimes. But is that good for our neighborhood? It was never talked about. It's never really been explained. And what was the point of him telling everybody that? I don't get it. It's not good for business. Who would want to move their business into our area, knowing that a building could be taken down right out from under them, which is happening? The VFW, they are now taking.
Thank you.
So
Ken.
think about the neighborhood. Thank you. Have a happy New Year.
Next up, Grace DeFola.
Hi, it's pronounced Tafoya,
Tafoya.
and I live in Gary, Indiana at 3380 Burr, and I'm here because I'm a Purdue student, and I live in the area and obviously come through here a lot. And over the years, I have been planting trees with SCA, but those are young trees, and they do not give us the kind of environmental help or buffer, as Casey put it, that the trees that have been here forever are giving us, and the trees that have already and continue to process pollutants in the air. And the growth, it'll be like 20, 30 years until they produce even nearly as much oxygen as the trees in Briar East Woods are producing. And I'm extremely tired of coming here. I'm sure you're tired of listening to us constantly come up here and tell you how to do your job, but apparently it's what we have to do to make our city the way all of us want it to be. We want trees in our city, and not young trees. We want old trees, trees that have been here since before our time. We want to remember what the earth looked like before it was filled with humans. And they're everywhere. I just want to see a little actual nature. The Indiana dunes in Miller brought in about far over $400 million in revenue. And that is, yes, a lot bigger than Hessville Dunes, but this Hessville Dunes is 12 acres and that provide you beautiful old woodland teeming with life, nothing compared to the dead soil within the rest of your city. It is dead. There is no life or anything living other than us. And it's depressing to see, quite frankly. And I just am here to tell you to care about it. This is their home too. And in East Chicago, Marktown, where I was planting those 50 trees that Casey mentioned, there used to be tons of old growth trees blocking the ugliness of BP. And my coworker that I worked with at SCA told us that she joined SCA because she heard about the trees being planted in Marktown by them. Because she's grown up there all her life, and all the trees she used to talk to as a child that she would play around are gone now. BP bought the properties, they cleared them out, they turned them into power stations to help fund their refinery, and it's horrible. It looks horrible. This is no place I want to live anymore. I want to leave here as fast as I can because this is an industrial wasteland. And the Hessville Dunes is the very last part of it that you have the option to protect to prevent from becoming an industrial wasteland. Those old growth trees in East Chicago have no hope left for them. They're gone and cut down and turned into parts of the refinery now. But this is trees that are still alive and that you still have the chance to protect. And I just want to remind you that all those trees that SCA plants, we have like an 80% ability of them living, but 20% of them die and become nothing and are a waste of your money. So just remember that every time you think you're planting a tree to replace the trees you cut down, they are nothing compared to the trees that are already there.
Thank you. That concludes the public expression. I want to thank everybody. Happy New Year to everybody, and thank you for allowing me to serve.